practices of Better Buildings Challenge partners, Better Buildings Alliance members, and aligned organizations who are working to improve energy efficiency in buildings. Today we'll be focusing on Better Buildings participants involved in the world of property assessed clean energy, or PACE, financing. We have a strong panel today offering diverse perspectives on PACE. We'll speak with Clean Fund, a Better Buildings financial ally that finances clean energy projects through the PACE vehicle. And next we'll hear from Better Buildings partner City of Milwaukee, which has initiated a PACE program available to its local businesses. We'll also speak with a representative from the Los Angeles Universal City Hilton Hotel, where a PACE vehicle financed whole building energy efficiency upgrades. And last but not least, we'll have a few words from our Better Buildings financial ally liaison, Rahul Young, who will highlight the resources available to you all, to our audience, through the Financial Ally Program. So let me go ahead and introduce our presenters. We need to forward a couple of slides, I believe. So John Kinney is the CEO of Clean Fund, a specialty finance firm focused on property-assessed clean energy, PACE bonds, to complete energy efficiency improvements for commercial and industrial real estate owners. John holds a BA in human biology, a master's degree in industrial engineering, and an MBA from Stanford University. And he serves on the board of NatureBridge and is also a member of the YPO Environmental Network. A fun fact about John that I just cannot resist sharing is that he was a professional skateboarder in Europe. So that should give you a fun mental image for this presentation. Next, we'll hear from Eric Schambarger. He is the Deputy Director of the City of Milwaukee Office of Environmental Sustainability. Mr. Schambarger oversees the Milwaukee Energy Efficiency Program and the Milwaukee Better Buildings Challenge, and chairs the city's energy reduction team to reduce energy use across city operations. He manages the city's PACE financing program and led development of the energy chapter of the city's refreshed Milwaukee Sustainability Plan. Eric holds a Master's of Public Affairs, a degree with a specialization in energy policy and finance from the University of Wisconsin. Next up will be Steve Thompson. Steve is the Director of Property Operations at Hilton Los Angeles Universal City, where he manages operations repairs, capital projects, and oversees the utility and cost and controls departments. Steve has 41 years of experience in hotel operations, including over 6 years with Hilton Los Angeles Universal City. And finally, Rahul Young is Vice President at ICF International and leads ICF's San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, and Portland offices. He serves as the Financial Ally Liaison for the U.S. Department of Energy's Better Buildings Challenge. Next slide, please. And before we get started with our panelists, I want to remind our audience that we will hold questions until near the end of the hour. So please send in questions as you think of them through the text interface on your webinar screen. There should be a little text box where you can send in questions to us. All right, I'll turn things over to John Kinney to tell us a little bit about PACE generally and about Clean Fund. John?
Thanks, Holly. Thank you very much, Holly. I'm really happy to be here and glad that we have so many people interested in learning more about PACE. What we have with PACE is an innovative funding solution for building owners to invest in energy improvements. And we're trying to keep pace with a bunch of different technologies that are coming on board, and the building owners just aren't doing the improvements that they need to do. And so we're trying to figure out why. So let me tell you what I think the situation is and why Clean Fund is excited about commercial PACE. I'm going to ask you to just keep up with me on this, on changing slides. The main thing is that energy efficiency is still perceived as risky. You get these buildings and they don't really know when they do an energy improvement whether it's going to have a positive payback. In addition to that, energy isn't really mission critical. This building it's more important for them to do tenant improvements and signage and things like that. Steve will tell you later why for Hilton in his job they do see it as important, but in general energy isn't seen as mission critical for real estate owners. And when they do it, the energy improvements tend to benefit the tenants and the future owners, even though it's a cost of the current owner. That's because the building tenants pay for utilities, and then the building is sold, and someone else gets to enjoy it going forward. So all this has capital constraints that are really tough on building owners. They have to prioritize ruthlessly. So the complication is, in summary, on the next slide, please, building owners really don't have compelling reasons to make these energy improvements. The capital budgets get redirected towards what they see as mission-critical projects, and that's going to result in deferred maintenance, subsidies that aren't fully utilized, and frustrated commercial real estate stakeholders all around. The real estate values and the government and the environment, and I put that as a oh, by the way, are the ones that suffer from postponing all these cash flow positive investments. We're not trying to get real estate owners to take up what we believe is so critical about the environment. We're just trying to get them to do things that already make sense. So the implication is that you're going to have buildings with less comfort and higher cost of occupancy for the tenants. And then for those who are selling these great new energy efficiency and renewable energy products, you're going to have fewer customers that are able to buy, even though they're positive cash flow. And ironically, the ones who really add the risk are the mortgage holders. So all of that makes for a complicated environment. But there is a solution. We've already got muni finance that's enabled for tax collections. You're already seeing the ability to do special assessments for improvements like roads, highways, schools, protective services. These are already getting done, and it benefits real estate owners indirectly. And they don't have to pay for it as debt. They're paying for it out of property tax obligations. So the cool new thing now is that this public-private partnership opportunity exists where you have investors that can be attracted in to purchase privately the bonds from each government agency that goes on private real estate. And that's new. These are much smaller transactions, but this is what enables PACE to happen in a global way. And Eric's going to talk more about this, so I'm not going to go into more detail here. Let me just say, on the next slide, you can see that our job is to make what is a relatively complex transaction look simple. And these are complex transactions in their entirety, but each relationship that we have to build is relatively simple. But property owners are going to look at this as real estate finance and structured finance. Energy efficiency and renewable energy vendors look at this as energy finance. The cities and counties, this is muni finance for them. Bankers and lenders, this is project finance. Those are each sort of separate Venn diagrams that don't intersect. And while each one of them may be simple, bringing them all together is what is complex and is the job for companies like Clean Fund. And when we do it right, it results in some really great savings that don't cost the owners anything. You have the old operating expenses in a building, and operating expenses, what I'm talking about here are utilities. It's also property taxes. It's also common area maintenance. But when you look at that existing operating expense bill and you do a PACE transaction, you're going to have new operating expenses. The utilities will go down. You're going to have new taxes that add in there, but you're going to generally see a savings. And we underwrite to make sure these are at least neutral. But the building owners love being able to do this because it doesn't add recourse financing. They can pass it through the tenants, even though it's a savings, the tenants get that savings. So that's what makes it work, and that's why it's growing throughout the country. if you look at where this has passed, it's now in 31 states and the District of Columbia. A lot of municipalities are doing their own programs and are actually putting out money to finance things themselves. The momentum is definitely there. I'm not going to talk about residential PACE, and a lot of these programs tend to be led by residential, especially in California, but now commercial is on the heels of that, and I think it's going to ultimately be as large or larger. Partly because this type of financing has very straightforward underwriting requirements. If you think about what it is that we have to do, we've got good checks and balances built in here because the projects have to meet the local program criteria to qualify for the public good. Clean Fund really believes it's important not to be approving our own transactions, and so we try to go into areas where there is a separate administrator, so that we're having Eric approve a transaction in Minneapolis instead of us running the program ourselves. Each project is going to have to improve the property value, and we basically determine that to be cash flow. We're looking for net positive cash flow transactions. And again, the check and balance here is having the vendor who is doing engineering studies and diagrams and making commitments to the property owner, evaluating what these savings look like. In terms of size, the maximum amount of a PACE transaction is determined by property value. We're financing a percentage of the property value, generally up to 10% of the property value. That's as opposed to financing based on cash flow of the building itself. So we're not having to underwrite to the tenant roles and to what's going on in that building. We're really just saying we can only go so much because of the property value. The minimum size is more based on the program itself. And these transactions, because we are dealing, as I showed you, with 4 different stakeholder groups, the transactions tend to be more expensive by themselves. And when you layer on program expenses, those make it very difficult for real estate owners to justify these. So that's what really determines the minimum size. The other thing is that Clean Fund requires an additional check and balance, which is having the mortgage holder's approval. We think it's really important to be in partnership with the mortgage holders rather than in any kind of adversarial relationship. And we also want to make sure our existing customers, the real estate owners, see it the same way. So we're looking at these different investment barriers that we're trying to solve. The capital constraints we can solve by giving them financing, lining up the benefits with those who are paying the cost. We do that through making these eligible as a pass-through, because whoever pays the utilities almost always pays the property taxes. The uncertain hold time for real estate owners is solved by having these be fully transferable. Long payback periods are okay as long as they're cash flow positive up front. Real estate owners don't like covenants. They don't like recourse financing. This is no covenant, no recourse. And the fact that they're not mission critical, that's something still hard for us to get around. We still have to convince real estate owners to do energy improvements. But at least we don't affect their debt capacity. This isn't taking it away from something that they may consider more mission critical. And just to give you a sense for some of the transactions that get done, Sonoma Mountain Village is an office park in Sonoma, California, where we did a $1.6 million improvement, saves a couple $100,000 by generating energy. It cost them about $150,000 in tax payments, and allowed them to position the building as a clean energy campus and attract some new tenants. I'm not going to talk much about the Prologis transaction, which is the next slide, but it was a $1.4 million transaction. Prologis, which obviously had plenty of money to do it, chose to do it with Clean Fund and not use equity on something that they may not have seen as mission critical to the REIT. It did result in basically cash flow neutral, but the fact that utilities are going to go up over time, they went down in absolute basis, and they're going to go up over time, whereas taxes stay the same, leads Prologis to believe this is a $350,000 net improvement to the building. And again, we'll talk about this later. I think Holly's going to talk more about it. The other transaction, just to highlight, is we've done a lot of transactions with the Connecticut Green Bank that they've originated and we've financed. One of them in particular was this $2 million energy efficiency upgrade in Bridgeport. It saves the building $75,000 a year, and that's what makes lender approval really easy to do, is when we're getting rid of a $2 million impairment and saving them $75,000 a year, just that savings at a 6x cap rate makes them look at this as a $1.25 million improvement. So really easy to get lender approval when you're doing something that helps the building so much. I'm not going to go into this much, but it is important for the real estate owners to choose a good PACE partner. So they have to go with someone that is a leader, someone that has a track record. They've already been doing PACE transactions, someone that is working with programs. Clean Fund has actually worked with almost every program out there, and really feel comfortable in building these public-private partnerships with all the different municipalities. The team that people choose to work on their real estate need to have a bunch of different expertise areas. This is muni finance, it's structured finance, it's project finance, it's energy finance, and those all have to come together. Initially, we think it's pretty important to be with a private company that is able to do more flexible terms, low cost, move quicker. Clean Fund has already established the ability to issue bonds on a national basis through one agency, so we're really held back only by which programs are open. We can issue bonds on a national basis and all with the same paperwork. And we don't think of ourselves as having PACE be the solution to everything. We have to work with a lot of different finance tools, and that's what our structured finance people do. So the actions that we think we're going to be able to do is we're going to take buildings like this that are able to do a little tiny bit of solar and do a lot of solar. We're going to be able to get building owners to invest in energy efficiency without using equity, without creating new covenants, without taking their valuable budget. We're going to get them to be able to complete all the cash flow positive energy improvement measures instead of just the ones that they can afford in their budget this year. They can do it all now. And this is also going to be done in a way that aligns the expenses of those improvements with whoever benefits, whether that's the occupants or future owners. And that's what we think is going to really make PACE the multi-billion-dollar improvement that is going to make a significant dent in our environmental problems out there. So I'll turn it back to you, Holly, and have you introduce Eric.
Great. Thanks, John, for the primer on PACE and a description of some of the barriers and solutions there with PACE. Eric, we're going to turn it right over to you to tell the audience about Milwaukee's story and how the city has made PACE available to its building owners. Eric?
Thanks, Holly, and thanks, John. Hopefully everybody got a good sense in general what PACE is supposed to do. And so I'll kind of get into the Milwaukee experience. One of the reasons we wanted to do PACE financing is to fit it into our overall sustainability plan, which is called Refresh Milwaukee. And we have a broad sustainability plan, and buildings and energy are a key component of that plan as we strive to make Milwaukee, as the mayor likes to say, the fresh coast capital of North America. And you know, our feeling is that energy efficiency really is important to cities. It's an important economic development tool that helps us stay competitive. You know, as businesses shop around looking for places to locate, you know, they look at the cost of doing business, and energy is cost of doing business. And so we need to do our part to make our older buildings in the city less expensive to operate. And of course, investing in energy efficiency creates local jobs. It means better, more stable buildings, again, helping lower operating costs and then improving local air quality. And so all those things are important because with PACE, it's helpful to establish the public benefits to have, you know, to pass a PACE ordinance locally. And the other thing we heard in talking to building owners is that all the existing building owners appreciate economic development tools. Most cities are used to providing financing for new developments through tax incremental financing and other things. But I think it's really important to have a tool in your toolbox to help all the existing building owners who have been in the city for a long time, help them make upgrades. And so from the building owner standpoint, I think John did a nice job of breaking it down. With our programming, we don't talk too much about the environmental benefits. We really try to talk about the bottom line benefits to the building owner, as John kind of laid out. And again, it's those operational savings. It's improving occupant comfort and satisfaction, which means less complaints. So you think about what is mission critical to a commercial building owner, and making sure that the customers aren't complaining about a heating or cooling system that's too hot or too cold can be mission critical to them. And so it's useful to think about energy saving projects for, yes, saving energy, but also improving the occupant comfort and the value of the buildings. There can be tax benefits associated with building improvements and reducing the risk of unexpected equipment breakdowns. So those factors drive interest in new equipment that also happens to save energy. Next slide. So our PACE financing is available to commercial building owners, and when I say commercial building, that can be basically anything that's not a government or a 1 to 3 unit home. It can apply to nonprofit buildings, commercial buildings, churches, and that sort of thing. And our state statute covers energy efficiency projects, water efficiency projects, and renewable projects. Things like boilers, chillers, building controls, solar energy lighting, and any other improvement, as long as it's permanently affixed to the building. We do some windows, although it's good to tie those into a broader energy efficiency project. Next slide. So the idea is we're making private capital available to building owners via this unique public-private partnership. So the loans in Milwaukee are provided by private investors. The loan funds are provided by private investors. Payments for those improvements are collected from the participating building owners through the voluntarily assumed special charge on the property tax bill. And that's, so once a year, tax bill comes out and you'll see a special charge that shows up for PACE for the participating building owners. And all of that leads to benefits to the building owners, tenants, and the community. It sounds like such a simple thing, the city acting as a collection agent for energy efficiency loans, but it really does open up a whole range of benefits that John described for the building owner, and it makes these projects make a lot of economic sense for the building owner, where maybe in the past it wouldn't have. And part of that, too, gets to, before I get into the mechanics of it, is really allowing for long-term financing. So a lot of traditional loans, commercial loans, maybe only go up to 5 years. And so if you have a boiler project or a solar project that pays for itself in 10, a 5-year loan doesn't really work very well because the payments are more than the energy savings. So PACE allows for loans up to 20 years or the life of the equipment, whichever is shorter. And so that can help make the projects become cash flow positive. So here's the mechanics. I call it the PACE square dance. You really have 4 different parties involved in a transaction. You got the city, you got the PACE lender, building owner, and the contractor. And so this diagram kind of explains how it works within the city of Milwaukee. You have there's a tri-party legal agreement between the building owner, the city, and the PACE lender that provides for the lender providing construction loan funds to the building owner, and then establishing that that loan will be repaid first to the city, and then the city repays the PACE lender. The building owner can then draw on those funds to pay a participating contractor, and our state law in Wisconsin requires a performance contract for projects over $250,000 to guarantee those energy savings. And so the building owner enters into that performance contract with the contractor, and the city just makes sure as part of its approval process that that agreement is in place. Next slide. So we established a program manual with eligibility criteria. And I guess before I get into the eligibility, just take kind of a step back as to how this all unfolded. There was a PACE statute at the state level that was very short and not very clear as to what all projects would be in there. It just generally said energy efficiency, water saving projects, and renewable energy projects can be treated as a special charge, and that was about it. And so even though there's a state legislation out there, but the city had to pass its own ordinance so that we could have authority to collect these repayments on our property tax bills. And after the ordinance got a little bit more detailed than the state statute, but that still left a whole lot of unanswered questions about eligibility and those sorts of things. So after that, we developed a program manual to kind of lay out all of the eligibility requirements, how we would go about approving a project, and the underwriting that goes into it. And one of the principles of that was to try to make sure that the city's underwriting guidelines were well aligned with the lender's underwriting guidelines. We didn't want a situation where the city approved a project and then we take it to the lenders and the lenders say, well, we have lots of other things that we need to look at. We wanted to make it very clear and upfront to the prospective building owners, what requirements the city had, and then make those sure those aligned with the private lenders. And so that from that, the program manual was developed and these eligibility requirements came out. And I got to thank Clean Fund. They were very helpful in shaping these requirements. So it's an existing commercial building located in the city of Milwaukee. No property tax delinquencies. That may seem obvious that if we're going to have a loan collected on the property tax bill, we want to make sure the building owner has a record of paying their property taxes. No bankruptcies or administrative judgments out there. The max PACE project size we look at is 20% of the property value, and we use assessed value, or the building owner may provide an appraisal if they want to contend that they're eligible for more than what their assessed value would indicate. We have a listing of participating ME2 commercial contractors. ME2 is the brand name for our PACE program. It stands for Milwaukee Energy Efficiency. And we have pre-approved a list of contractors that can do energy efficiency work. And the reason is we wanted to, talking about those public benefits, if the city was going to put a program in place to incentivize energy efficiency, we wanted to make sure that we were putting people who live in the city to work. And so all of our participating contractors have agreed to hire local workers on these projects. So as I'm reviewing projects, I'll make sure that the work is to be done by one of our participating contractors, and we have a very extensive list of those contractors. I mentioned projects over $250,000 require a performance contract. If the project's under that, we have a list of eligible improvements on our website and the anticipated useful life of those projects, which gives us some guidance as to how long the PACE loan can be. As John mentioned, we require a lien holder acknowledgement or mortgage holder acknowledgement. So the existing mortgage holder is basically notified of this PACE project coming down the pike, and they have to agree to it. And that really is just to avoid any legal issues down the road of people and different parties dickering over who's to be paid when and what. But it's kind of a good precaution to make sure everybody's on board with what's going on. And lastly, we require all of our PACE participants to get involved with the Better Buildings Challenge. As Holly mentioned, the city is involved with the Department of Energy's Better Buildings Challenge, and we feel like if we're going to provide financing, we want to get people actively involved in tracking their energy use and celebrating their improvements to their buildings. Next slide. So our application process is all online. It starts at our website, which you guys can all check out, smartenergypays.com, and click on the Businesses tab. All of the PACE resources are listed there. And it starts with a very simple PACE interest form in which the building owner just tells us, who the owner is, where the property is located. And it's really more for the building owner, more so than us, but they go through and they check off that they understand how PACE works. And it's really just kind of a pre-screening tool. I can quickly look at the property, get a quick sense for how big of a PACE project we might be able to do. I can check the property tax status on it to make sure there's no delinquencies. And it's really just kind of a quick first step before the building owner spends too much time trying to put a project together if they're not going to ultimately be eligible. The building owner then works with one of our participating contractors to scope out the project and develop a bid with cost estimates and, if necessary, energy saving estimates. And that goes in with the final PACE application that really nails down at that point, how much they're looking for with on a PACE loan. I can look at what the energy savings are and compare those to the project cost over time, and just really go through in detail to make sure all of the requirements are met on the project. And then lastly, we close the loan with the city and the lender. On our first project, we utilized the Milwaukee Economic Development Corporation, which is historically an economic development quasi-affiliated with the city, and they provide gap financing on a lot of projects historically, and they were very helpful in helping us get the first PACE project off the ground. Next slide. So we just recently completed our first PACE project at a building called the University Club, pictured there right on near our lake shore. PACE Equity is a local firm that was the project developer. They kind of helped the building owner get through the process on the initial one, scoped out the work, and did a kind of a competitive process to get different contractors on board. We ended up with 5 installation contractors from our participating contractor list to do the work. Scope of the project was HVAC work, windows, lighting, steam trap improvements. In Milwaukee, we have district steam, and so steam costs for downtown buildings can be quite expensive, and so the steam traps is a sometimes overlooked energy efficiency opportunity. Project size was $662,000, and we did the loan over 18 years. So the annual repayment, including interest, was about $62,000, and the guaranteed savings are $56,000. However, we estimate that if energy rates continue to climb as they have historically, that over 18 years, the actual energy savings could be around $1.3 million worth of savings. But again, the energy savings, I don't think, frankly, were the driving factor in the decision for this building owner to move forward. Really the issue was, they had a lot of problems with their HVAC, and they wanted to make sure that the occupants were comfortable in the building. And so I think those, the desire to just upgrade the building, generally speaking, was the primary motivator for the project. Next slide. So just kind of some words of advice if you embark on PACE. I think it's really important to have patience, especially on the first project. After we had established the program manual and those sorts of things, I thought we were in the clear. But getting that first contract nailed down was time-consuming for us. Anytime you have a contract between 3 parties for the first time and haven't done it before as a city, there are attorneys from different parties that get involved and that work to negotiate an agreement that's going to work for everybody. So it's a good process to go through on the first one to make sure we incorporated the concerns of all the different parties. But we're hoping going forward that projects will move forward more quickly now that we've got all our templates and legal documents nailed down. I mentioned this before, but I think it's important to sync the underwriting requirements that the city has and align those with the lender's requirements and make sure you're collecting all the information you're ultimately going to need on the front end rather than constantly going back to the building owner asking for additional documents. It's important to manage expectations as you go through it. Again, it ties back to the first one with patience, but helping people understand that it will take a little bit of time and just continuing to work with them going forward. And then lastly, one area that we spent a lot of time in Milwaukee thinking through is, if the building owner defaults on their obligations or tax obligations or their PACE obligations, what that means for all of the different parties involved. And so we spent a lot of time thinking through all the different scenarios and coming up with legal agreements that I think balance the interest of all the various parties that were out there. Next slide. So again, I got to put in a plug for the Better Buildings Challenge. Most of you on the presentation probably know all this, but if not, the goal of the Better Buildings Challenge is to cut energy use 20% by the year 2020, help building owners gain recognition for their efforts. You know, energy savings is behind the scenes, and we wanted to really celebrate the people that are doing a good job managing their buildings. Energy efficiency can help attract talents, and then of course the Better Buildings Challenge has those free tools to help building owners manage their energy use through the EPA Portfolio Manager system. And the PACE financing is really a nice offering to have along with the Better Buildings Challenge. It's one thing to ask building owners to cut their energy use 20%. It's another thing to say, and oh, by the way, the city is here to be a partner and help you finance these projects. And we've got a nice partnership going with BOMA. That's the Building Owners and Managers Association here in the city of Milwaukee in our downtown business improvement district to help educate building owners on PACE. And you know, as one gentleman from BOMA said, he said, you know, look, building owners want to do energy efficiency. A lot of times it's just a matter of having the tools and resources to go ahead and do it. And so PACE kind of takes away the excuses a lot of people might have for not doing energy efficiency. Going back to all the reasons John outlined in his presentation, it really makes energy efficiency projects make sense from a cash flow standpoint. Next slide. These are just the buildings in the city that have taken the pledge for the Better Buildings Challenge, and those are all major buildings in the city of Milwaukee going forward. Next slide. Other way. There we go. And this is just a shot of Portfolio Manager. So, you know, some people ask me, okay, I've done this PACE project. How do I know that my project actually saved energy over time? And I say, well, I'm glad you asked. That's one of the benefits of being in the Better Buildings Challenge and having access to EPA's free Portfolio Manager tool. That's a great way to input your energy data and be able to, as a building owner, see that energy use go down over time. So, you know, financing is one aspect of Better Buildings, and then measurement and verification is the next, and Portfolio Manager is a great resource that the federal government provides to building owners to help track and manage that energy use going forward. So that concludes my presentation, and you know, I just really encourage cities out there that are struggling to find no or low-cost ways to help their existing building owners. PACE is a great resource to do that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eric. That's certainly a great example of walking the energy efficiency talk in Milwaukee and helping business owners to do the same. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. I want to remind our audience members to send in any questions that you have through the webinar interface. We are collecting those right now and organizing those for our Q&A period at the end. Let's turn now to the building owner perspective with Steve Thompson at Hilton Los Angeles Universal City. Steve, can you tell us about your recent project?
Yeah, we were involved with a lot of sustainability efforts, and we have a building that was approaching 30 years of age. And we were experiencing all the things that people do, you know, equipment breakdowns, major equipment repairs, you know, inefficiencies in old equipment. And we knew we needed to start replacing things. But, you know, all of those are very capital intense. And what we found with the PACE funding, you know, we can pay for all these things over time and get a significant amount of work. What we well knew was about 7 years worth of projects done in just a few months. And now we save the operating expense as a result. We save the energy as a result. And the internal comfort of the building and the complaints have gone down dramatically. So that's what was appealing to about the PACE program for us as an entity and a business. We had looked at a lot of other programs out there where there were shared energy savings, and they just weren't appealing because of the cost and the payback terms. With the PACE, our savings are greater than any of the payments to pay down the PACE fund. So we can go to the next slide. This is some of the things that we've been calculating. You know, we were doing our energy rating on our portfolio manager, and we discovered we didn't like where we were. So with the PACE program, we managed to get it into a much more favorable position, but we still know that we've got some more things we want to do to get a 30-year-old building into a better picture today with the amount of energy consumption we use. You could use the next slide, please. We've been involved in several organizations, the Green Seal, Bronze. This year we're looking at Gold, so we've done a lot more things as far as sustainability efforts. A lot of it's really paid off. Our customers today, they're expecting us to do all these things. A lot of the bigger organizations actually send us a survey now to make sure that we're engaged in, you know, the efforts regarding sustainability. Next page. And here's kind of an overview. We were the largest PACE project in the United States, brought a lot of great PR to our organization. We had a lot of great dignitaries here. It's very well supported in the city of Los Angeles, and we actually will take the time and tour other organizations, other businesses through our facility to let them know what the benefits are with the PACE program. Next slide. Some of the projects that we completed, we put in new centrifugal chillers with variable speed drives, and the local utilities are very generous on the rebates on both of those projects. We did an elevator modernization for 14 elevators, and what we're really excited about are the LED lighting. The product quality today is phenomenal. We have very few, the failure rate's almost zero on the new product, and it's a great light spectrum that we've received as well. Our guest room HVAC motor replacement was one we had not considered. Through the PACE program, we determined that there's better efficiency, so we replaced all the incremental fan coil unit motors. The window film tint dramatically reduced the thermal load in the interior space, and then we went to low-flow shower heads, and then we did smart glass installation that self-dims in key areas. We improved some interior space comfort with the ballroom HVAC upgrade, and we put it in a dual EV charger station. We're getting a lot more activity. And as a result of these upgrades, year-to-date, we're at 28% in electrical consumption reduction. So, you know, we're really, you know, very happy about that, and we're going to continue to monitor that, but we've achieved our 28% reduction. Next slide. This is kind of a before and after picture. We had some significant failures on some centrifugal chillers, and we had put in some, you know, repairs over the years. We had done some upgrades, but we managed to go ahead and replace the 2 existing chillers. Next slide. Elevator modernization, we had, you know, 30-year-old elevators. We managed to go with regenerative drive on traction elevators and did all of our parking garage elevators. Just better reliability, much reduced energy consumption. Next slide. LED lighting, we've done all the public space, all the back of house, all the parking garage, and with the best technology that's available, and we're really happy with how that's turned out. That was over 12,000 lamps in one facility we replaced. Next slide. Here's the EC motors. This was one of the things that we hadn't considered, but we had learned about along our journey, and it's really helped with the reliability of the HVAC in the guest rooms. They're quieter, and they're just significantly less consumption of electricity. Next slide. The shower heads, 1.7 GPM. We did a study on this. We did a lot of testing to make sure it was adequate. We had it in place for a while, and we did the whole building, and you can see that the reduction in water consumption has been significant. Next slide. The solar window film, what we really liked about this project, it was a zero impact to an operating building. The solar film really reduces that internal heat load, and it's a very quick, easy installation. You know, you're not having to do anything major to a building, but the heat load and the amount of reduced AC load that we now have to have was significant. Next slide. Here's some of the smart glass installation. It's a self-dimming glass based on the solar load on the outside. A lot of these interior spaces we could never adequately cool when the sun strike was on that face of the building. Now we have, complete comfort in all those spaces. Next slide. This is just how some of the view glass works. It's kind of a neat product. We've all seen the self-tinning eyeglasses over the years. This is a technology that can put it into large pane formats, so you can reduce that sun strike. Next slide. Some of our HVAC upgrade, we replaced a lot of VAV boxes, so we have proper sizing, better airflow, and a lot less customer complaint issues. In the winter months, it was we've always had a lot of complaints in that area. Now they've gone away. Next slide. EV charging station, we're seeing more and more EV electric vehicles in the market. We see everything from the Teslas to the Leafs to, they're coming about. People are using them for commute vehicles, and we like the EV charging station. It gets good customer support, so as the demand picks up, we'll be adding more EV charging stations. Next slide. Okay, that was it for me.
Thanks so much, Steve. Great improvements and great story behind what I assume is still the largest PACE project, so thank you. I'd like to remind our audience we've had a couple of questions about getting specific lists or seeing these slides. I want to remind folks that you can access an archive of this presentation, both the audio and the slides, following the session. They'll be posted no more than a week from now, and you will receive an email letting you know that that archive is available. I'd like to finish off our panel with Rahul Young from ICF, and he's going to tell us just a little bit about the Financial Allies Program and other folks like Clean Fund who are standing ready to assist with energy efficiency upgrades. Rahul?
Great. Thanks, Holly. And again, this is Rahul Young. I'm a Vice President at ICF International, and I'm serving as the liaison to all of the Better Buildings Challenge Financial Allies. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. As part of the Better Buildings Challenge, in addition to our many partners who have made commitments to energy efficiency reduction within their building portfolios, we have a number of different financial allies, currently over 20 active BBC financial allies. And basically, to become a financial ally, you have to be a firm that's committing at least to place at least $25 million in energy efficiency financing projects over the next 12 months. And in addition, we really have been focusing on firms that have relatively innovative energy efficiency financing models. There are a lot of great models that are out there, but we really want to try to promote some new ideas out here to try to really move the ball forward. So certainly, John and Clean Fund have been a great partner for us. We've got a number of different partners. I've included some of the logos down here at the bottom of the slide, but certainly you can get a full list of all of the financial allies on the BBC website. You can certainly also contact me directly if you'd like more information. Our goal here is to really try to spotlight all of the great work that our different financial allies are doing and to really help get the message out about the number of different options that there are for people who want to pursue energy efficiency financing. PACE is certainly going to be one great option. Depending on the type of facility, there may be other options to consider as well. And we really have allies who are working on all of the different building sectors, whether it be commercial, residential, multifamily, industrial, public, institutional, really all the way across the spectrum. So I encourage you to go to the website, and you can go to the next slide. Overall, we're really proud of the work that our financial allies have done. Since the beginning of the program, the financial allies have placed more than $1.7 billion in energy efficiency financing. And that's growing quickly, really across all different sectors. So PACE is a really important part of that, and again, is growing quickly. But certainly we're working in energy service agreements as well as a number of additional adapted products. So again, I just want to encourage people to take a look at the BBC website, look at the financial allies, and certainly feel free to contact me if you have specific questions, either about becoming a financial ally if you're a firm out there that is already working in this sector, or if you're looking for energy efficiency financing options and want to understand what your options are. You certainly are welcome to contact me, and I can try to put you in contact with the right potential firms for you to work with depending on your needs, the type of buildings you're working with, and the time frame you're working under. So that's it, Holly.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Couple more notes before we move into our Q&A session. Next slide here. There are just a couple of resources I want to point out to our audience. First of all is a case study from our Better Buildings Challenge partner Prologis and Clean Fund, who you heard from at the beginning of the hour. This is the case study for that Prologis Pier 1 energy efficiency upgrade, as well as Clean Fund's case study about PACE and how they are using PACE to finance energy efficiency. So a little bit more detail than what you heard today from John. Secondly, City of Milwaukee is just probably moments away from completing an implementation model outlining their financing, their PACE financing model. And I should say Department of Energy is moments away from completing that. I think City of Milwaukee's part is done, and it's going up on the website. So you will probably see when this comes up as an archive, when this webinar comes up as an archive, you will see a link to that implementation model, which is posted up on the Better Buildings Challenge website under Solutions, and really, again, gives more detail about the inner workings of City of Milwaukee's program. If you are a city looking to implement a PACE program like this, definitely a good place to look. All right. Let's go ahead and take some questions from the audience. I have to say we've been overwhelmed with great questions, so I'm sure I won't be able to get to all of them, but I will try to get to a few, certainly. Let's start out with a question from or for John Kinney at Clean Fund, and I think also, Eric, you might have something to say about this. We've certainly heard, and you all mentioned that this issue of the mortgage lender needing to approve the PACE vehicle, that this can be an issue. We had someone talking about their experience in Manatee County trying to get a PACE program approved, and that this has been a big barrier. So wondering what experience Clean Fund has had sort of getting past that hurdle, and Eric, you as well, if you have additional comments.
I will tell you that the first mortgage holders are, if you are able to get to the right level at the bank, you're going to get things approved if they improve the value of the property, and the property is not in financial trouble. And if it is in financial trouble, or if the transactions don't obviously improve the value of the property, they will not be approved. But we've never asked for approval on a project that didn't make sense, and so we've received 100% approval so far. There are a couple of cases where general approval is not available. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not going to approve transactions on residential units. And so, again, our focus is exclusively on commercial, and many of the programs out there are now exclusively focused on commercial because they don't want to invite the federal agency that's opposed to residential PACE. to be at odds with them. If Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had the opportunity to look at each transaction and approve it, they might be willing to do that. What they're opposed to is a blanket approval for all residential, and residential just doesn't have the size to warrant the kind of attention that you are able to do on the commercial. But the commercial banks have to realize that they are, if we do a $1 million improvement, we're not asking that commercial bank to sit in back of $1 million. We're asking them to sit in back of the $75,000 that is going to be on the property tax bill. And they typically, in commercial, will impound that property tax payment along with the mortgage. So they're actually making the property tax payment. And they know well in advance of a property tax bill if there's going to be a problem through their impounding.
Okay.
Eric, do you want to comment on that too?
Yeah, it has not been as much of an issue as I had expected it would be. But we did in our program manual provide some guidance to prospective borrowers about how to talk to their bank. And there's an organization nationally called PACE Now that produced some documents that kind of help have that conversation with banks. And it's helpful if the existing mortgage holder is a local bank or a regional bank, and you can actually talk to a person. That's definitely helpful. But as a program administrator, when I have a building owner who wants to do PACE, I offer to help them have that conversation with their bank. And I think part of the way to frame it to the bank is just trying to make it seem not exotic, but that put it in the context of property taxes and municipal special charges or special assessments, which they're very familiar with. And if you can say, look, it's just really no different than that in its structure, and oh, by the way, we're adding value to the building, I think you can make a pretty good case to the mortgage holder that it's in their interest as well as the building owners to approve the project.
I do think it's important to have a pretty sophisticated discussion with them, though. We typically will go in and do pre- and post-covenant compliance certificates so that they can see that these improvements actually improve the covenants that those mortgage holders have. And we've gone all the way to the chief credit officer at Wells Fargo and Bank of America to make sure that the large national mortgage holders understand these things. So the large banks are not going to do it generically, but they are all reasonable if you get to the right level.
Great. Thanks to both of you for that. We have so many fantastic questions here, and I encourage folks, we're right at the end of our session, so I really encourage folks, if you are one of the many people who we haven't had a chance to respond to questions we will provide email addresses for our presenters today, and I encourage you to dialogue with them via email and get answers to your questions. We had some really interesting ones come up. And I do want to spend the last minute of our session, if we could go to the next slide, please, just letting folks know about our November session. We'll be looking at the next big things in energy efficiency, looking at the HIT Catalyst program here at the U.S. Department of Energy, which is a methodology for finding and prioritizing energy efficiency technologies for buildings that are in development, in R&D, that are ready or perhaps ready for the market. And then working with you guys out there, organizations who are interested to demonstrate these technologies and really show that they are market ready and can be deployed more broadly. So we'll have a number of folks on in November on the 4th to talk about that hit list, as well as some of our technology demo programs and how you can get involved. You can register at the Better Buildings Challenge website. I believe that is up today, so you can go there and get ready for that. With that, I'd like to go to the next slide and just offer a heartfelt thank you to our panelists who joined us today. You'll see their email addresses here. Again, if you have questions that you'd like to ask them directly, please do. If you'd like to learn more about the Better Buildings Challenge or the Alliance, we had a couple of questions about those programs come in. Please feel free to contact me directly at the email address given, or the Better Buildings Alliance program lead, Kristen Tedonio, at her email. I encourage you to follow the Better Buildings Initiative on Twitter for all the latest info, and a reminder that you will receive an email following this session when the archive is available for viewing, and that should be within the next week or so. So again, thank you to our panelists very, very much for your time and your comments, and goodbye to everybody. We'll see you in November.
Thank you.